Everyone, we're talking with Leibel Sternbach. We're talking about Roth conversions. We're talking about his brand new book, the 30-Day Roth Conversion Handbook. Let's move over to talk about a little bit about the spouse, the heirs, and the decision-making questions that go along with it. And I'll do this first person. If I should die first, Leibel, will my wife really have to pay more tax on less income? And if that's the case, why is that happening?
Unfortunately, that is the state of how our tax code is written. It shouldn't be written that way, but that is the state of how it is. And the reason for that is that the tax code is really incentivized to encourage behaviors that we want to encourage. And so the behaviors we want to encourage, right? Good citizens are people who are married, have a white picket fence, and have 2.5 children and a dog, right? Like, this is what makes a good citizen. And so everything about the tax code is designed to encourage that. And one of the ways that we encourage people to get married and have kids is we give them tax credits. And so if you are single, you pay the highest, your tax brackets are the smallest, and you pay the highest proportionate rate of taxes. If you are married, you get to combine your tax brackets, right? And you get to pay less, and then you get deductions. And so when you have the gall to die before your spouse, and give them some peace and quiet for a few years, all of a sudden they're paying more taxes. And not only are they paying more taxes, but they lose the smaller Social Security check. Mm-hmm. So not only are they losing income, but they're paying a higher taxes. And the RMDs don't change. They still got to take out that same amount of money in RMDs, but now you're paying twice the amount of taxes on it, which, is a triple whammy, and is one that is totally unfair, but it is the world we live in.
It reminds me of The Price is Right with the double whammy. This is a triple that's happening. So what about if I'm successful and my kids inherit my IRA? How much does the IRS take? We know it's going to be some, but what did the Secure Act change that might make this even better for my family, for my kids?
Well, so what happened, so it used to be, before the Secure Act, what used to be was you had something called a stretch IRA. So your retirement account was, you had to take distributions while you were still alive, and that was designed to drain your account while you're still alive. However, if a child inherited that retirement account, then, or whoever inherited, they would have to take distributions according to their lifespan. So if you gave it to your, 50-year-old child, okay, they are taking it, now over 40 years instead of your remaining 10 years, right? So the IRS was okay with that for the most part, right? Because they were still getting their money. But some people realize, a lot of people realize, well, what if I make my grandkids the beneficiaries of my retirement accounts? Now, all of a sudden, you have 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds who are inheriting, a $500,000 retirement account, stretching those RMDs over the next 70 years of their life, right? And what's happening, right? The IRS is getting a little tiny chunk. That little tiny chunk that they're taking out is not, is below the standard deduction. And so they're not collecting any taxes on this. Great for the economy, right? Because it's great for these kids because they're inheriting money. They're also being forced to spend this money or invest the money, but they now have a step up, because when these kids who inherited $500,000 when they were kids, and that money just kept growing tax-free, tax-deferred until they're older and an adult, right? By the time they're 20, that $500,000 is several million. And that several million, by the time they're retired, it's a nice chunk of change, tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And IRS should have kept that, because I meet with so many people who they worked so hard their entire life to save. They forewent vacations. They didn't buy luxury. They chopped coupons and did everything to save every penny they could so that they could leave their children better off than they were. And they did it in the form of these retirement accounts. And now Congress has taken that away from them. All right. So what Congress did was said, instead of being able to stretch this over your grandkids' lifetime, we are now going to force you to, if you are a qualified beneficiary, you have 10 years to take that money out. If you're not qualified, then you have 5 years to take that money out. And now all of a sudden that $500,000 or a million or 2 million or 3 million, right? Let's use easy numbers, $1 million, $1 million. Now that has to come out. You still have to take the RMDs, but by year 10, that account has to be at zero. The people who are inheriting this are probably at their peak earning years, right? Your kids did well, right? You made sure they got a college education. You made sure they got a good job. You helped them buy a house, right? They're doing great, except they're also in a high tax bracket, right? They're probably making more money than you ever made in your lifetime. And so they're, 24% tax bracket, maybe 32% tax bracket, made really good jobs. And now all of a sudden you're going to dump on them another $1 million in taxable income. Well, guess what? The IRS is going to say thank you, and they're going to collect their 37 plus the 3.2% of Medicare surcharge tax and whatever else. And by the time you're done, the IRS has become the greatest beneficiary, the biggest beneficiary of your retirement accounts instead of your children. And so, who did you work hard for your entire life? You or your kids or the IRS for some Congress person to piss it away and blow Social Security.
So you've answered the question, who does the conversion actually pay off for? I guess the answer might be it depends, or is it for the kids? Is it for me, or is it for...
So the hard math, and it depends on how you're invested, right? So, and it depends on your age, right? So, and this is the weird thing, right? So I have two spectrums of people who come to me. I have people who come to me who are very conservative, and they're like, I've worked hard for this money. I want to make sure that it's there for me in retirement. I don't care about doubling my money anymore. I don't care about getting market-like growth. I just want to know that I'm not going to lose it, right? I want my 5-6% a year after fees, and I don't care about anything else, right? There's other people who are like, I know the market made me a fortune, it made me rich. I just want to be invested in the market. I'll ride the roller coaster. I just want to pay the least amount of taxes possible. Two very different people, because if you're growing at 5% a year, right? Well, your money is going to take quite a while to double. And so when you're talking about doing Roth conversions, it's probably going to take you about 20 years before you come out ahead from doing the Roth conversion, because you got to pay those taxes somehow, and that tax has got to come from somewhere. And because you're a savvy person, you have your money invested. So you got to really look at the cost of opportunity, the opportunity cost of having to pay that taxes up front versus letting it grow and then paying it as it happens, as those RMDs happen. And so generally speaking, it takes about 15 to 20 years for the more conservative investor to break even on, to come out ahead from doing that Roth conversion. But if you're fully invested in the market and you're just doing the S&P 500, right, you're getting your 10% average return, that's going to be a lot shorter time horizon, right? And so you doing a conversion during your lifetime, right, if you're invested aggressively, you might see that return very quickly, especially if you're younger, right? You come to me in your, early 60s, well, you got a long time ahead of you, hopefully, right? So, you might have, 20, 30 years of retirement. That's a long time to see that compounding the tax-free return. You come to me in your 70s and your 80s, right, and you're conservative, I'm going to tell you, you're never going to see this in your lifetime. Maybe it'll save you $20,000, $30,000 in taxes, right? Maybe 100, 200. But, if you've got a whole lot of money, but it's really not about you, because that's nothing compared to your spouse, who's going to pay double in taxes. And whatever she's going to save or they're going to save is nothing compared to your beneficiaries, because your beneficiaries are going to have that 10 years. They're going to have to take it out all at once, probably 37%. Even if they did it over 10 years, right, you're saving that 40%, right? So now your choice really is, well, okay, am I going to pay 22, 24% on my Roth conversion so that I save them 37, 40%, right? Maybe more because of state taxes. And that number can often be in the millions compared to during your lifetime, which maybe is a few $100,000.
So last question, can I do this myself? And is the annuity that pays for my conversion tax really a good deal?
So let's break that up. Can you do annuity? Can you do Roth conversions yourself? Absolutely. Everyone's doing them, right? Lots of people are doing Roth conversions. The hard part is not doing the Roth conversion. The hard part is doing it in a way where you pay the least amount of tax as possible. And I'm going to give you one of the secrets in the book, right? And this is our secret sauce. The thing that we do for our clients that very few people are able to do is we look at the market and we time the market, right? You hear all the time, don't time the market, don't time the market. And for investing, yeah, you probably shouldn't time the market because it's better to just get in and ride it, right? What a dollar cost average in and have fun. Because timing when to buy, right, you're almost always going to be wrong. However, statistically speaking, we know that a 5% correction happens every 3.5 months. 10% correction happens every 18 months. 20% or greater correction happens every 3.5 years. This is clockwork discounts, right? Like all we need to do is like wait for the market to correct, which we know it's going to happen with regular frequency. And then we can save 5, 10, 20% on our Roth conversion, right? If you came to me and you know you're going to pay these taxes, even if you just did this for taking your RMDs, you're going to pay less in taxes. And so being able to set yourself up for success so that you're paying the least amount of taxes, converting as much as possible, right? That's, so can you do that yourself? Maybe, but to be able to really pull it off and to get the biggest bang for your buck, not really. It's not something that's very easy to pull off on yourself. It requires, you don't want to do index investing. You got to hold the underlying stocks of the index so that you have more surface area. And then, you got all kinds of other things, other technical details, because these conversions, right? Like we used to have an email list. We still have an email list where we send out alerts when a Roth conversion opportunities happen. When we're looking to see, we see the market starting to correct, we'll put people on notice of, hey, Roth conversion. But the last few alerts that we sent, by the time we sent it out and we execute our Roth conversions, the market already recovered. So if you're waiting for some kind of signal and you're not checking this every single day, you're going to miss the opportunities. So is this a do-it-yourself type of solution? Not really. You could, but I don't think you want to spend your retirement glued to the tickers and your brokerage account looking at the stocks go up and down. To answer the second question about annuities, which is a good question, you will see lots of annuities with these bonuses. I saw one the other day that had a 50% bonus. Right. So you put in $100 and your account balance went up, $150. And you're like, well, I want this free money, right? And there's lots of people out there hawking that, pay the taxes for your Roth conversion. The annuity will pay the taxes for your Roth conversion. It's very misleading. I have an entire appendix in the book where I go through breaking down exactly how these things work so that you can decide for yourself whether this is the right option. We don't sell annuities. We have no skin in the game. We just expose for you what exactly the deal with the devil you're making is. For most people, when they realize what exactly they're trading and what you're getting, because you're giving the insurance company dollars and you're getting back an IOU for something that you may never ever see something out of it that will be more than what you gave them. And that is a very tough pill for people to swallow. But if that is your deal, and there are some people who it very, very much makes sense for them to do it, then, absolutely it's the right choice. However, for probably 95% of the people I talk to who come to me with, what do you think about this annuity? And I'll help you shop it around. I'll help you find the best annuity that's the right thing for you. And I'll hook you up with someone to sell it. And I get nothing out of that other than, helping you better secure your finances and make the best decision possible. But very few people, by the time you go through it all and you have somebody who's not getting paid to sell it to you, who actually shows you how these things work, say that's the right deal for them. However, I did have someone the other day who his goal was he didn't want to leave any money to beneficiaries. His goal was for his money to go to charity when he died. And for him, doing an annuity gift, a gift annuity remainder trust was the right option, right? Where you get a paycheck while you're still alive, and then the remaining balance goes to the charity, and you get an upfront tax deduction, and he's using that to do Roth conversions, right? That's a deal that worked out for him, right? Doesn't work out for most people, but for his circumstances, it really made a difference.
That's so important because everyone's situation is different. That's why a financial advisor like yourself is so important. The name of the book is a 30-day Roth Conversion Handbook. Let's put a bow on this, Leibel. How can we find it? And tell us a little bit about whose money is this anyway?
Yeah. So you can find the book yieldsfree.com, amazon.com. So it's available. It will be available on Amazon. We're going to have it up for pre-order by the time this podcast airs. So you'll be able to get it on Amazon, Kindle, print, whatever you want. Please leave a review. Reviews are really, really helpful for books. It helps us get the message out to more people. So please put out a book. And if you do review, and if you do purchase the book, book a meeting with us. More than happy to talk to you. Love talking to our readers and our fans and our audience. That you're the reason why we do all of this. So really take us up on that. In terms of, whose money is this that you're doing, right? That is the fundamental question of the book. The book, right, makes you face the question of why the hell are you doing Roth conversions? And how do you maximize it, right? Are you maximizing it for your lifetime? Are you maximizing it for your spouse? Are you maximizing it for your kids? Or maybe you want to give the money to charity, in which case there are other options, and we talk about them in the book. But really, you got to answer that question first, right? And it's the question that very few advisors are going to walk you through.
Leibel Sternbach, we got to leave it right there. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the new book coming out soon, the 30-day Roth Conversion Handbook. I'm Freddie Bell, and this is Leibel on Fire, and we'll see you next time.